Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on this Monday, August 28th, 2017 day on our calendar. You're listening to the Investigative Journal. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and glad you're back, like I said. Two things I want to talk about today are first, what in the hell is beneath the Vatican memorial of dead popes in the Vatican? It's amazing. I was sent a clip on this, and then I started to do some research because I remember when I was in Rome, I wondered what was that huge head above the Vatican memorial for dead popes. And the mantle underneath this memorial list, there's a list of all the dead popes, right? The most disturbing and grotesque thing you'll ever see in your life. And I'll explain that later in the show. But before that, I want to get to some statistics. And I want to get to a website put out by a guy by the name of Bill Deagle. And I know Bill because he used to be on my show way back over a decade ago. And many people think Mr. Deagle is actually a COINTEL operative putting out information that the Vatican-led New World Order wants you to know, but acting in a way of trying to foil their plans. You know that's never going to happen. So let's look at what's on his website and all the things that we're seeing in the world today. I remember Deagle, he came to the forefront, started appearing on shows, mine included, regarding 9/11. And then a lot of 9/11 people who are actual truth seekers started to see some glaring problems with him. And over the years, that has heightened to a point where I'm not just saying this. Many people who've contacted me are stating, you got to watch Bill Deagle. Now, you're never sure about anything on the internet, but there are a lot of times these COINTEL operators who are paid well are there to give you like 90% of the truth, but then lead you down the wrong rabbit hole, as well as to give you information that they want you to see, acting as if they're fighting against it. Now, I think this information that was sent to me came from a man by the name of Richard Sauder, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, the information on the internet flies around like a free bird. So we're going to go after it because we talk about a lot of these things that are going on in the world today, which really, have to make you shake your head. Now, like I said, he's going to refer to Deagle, and he feels, this man who wrote some of this stuff here, and I'm going to paraphrase and then give you some of my own thoughts. I do have some thoughts. Yes. Some days I wake up and I wonder if I do have any left. But yes, I do. Okay. Well, it's all coming into focus now, isn't it? All the things that we talk about. And I've been talking about this for a number of years. I started researching the Vatican back in the mid-1980s. Well, even early, a little earlier than that. And really came into it cold without understanding anything. I was a naive young journalist and actually grew up Catholic, became an atheist, and I was plunked in Rome. And boy, I tell you, it changed my life. And I probably wouldn't be doing this now if I didn't spend those years there. Well, it's all coming into focus, I think. And you see the artificially created social divisions they're creating between the blacks and the whites now. And this social chaos is going on in many countries simultaneously, not just in America. There's an ongoing, coordinated takedown of this country as well as other countries. And this economy is going to collapse. I don't see anything else happening, and not in the not too distant future. There's a steady drumbeat all the time, this conflict all over the world, isn't there? War, North Korea against Iran, North Korea against us, Iran against us, Venezuela against China. We're battling them against Russia, Afghanistan, and on and on and on. And this political crisis that they've produced here in this country and in many other countries is created and coordinated for a takedown, for a depopulation. There's always this ever-threatened massive threat of natural disasters, such as this huge flooding going on in Texas. And I did a special report yesterday and started to show you some facts about weather modification. And I'm sure they have some sophisticated programs, because weather modification is nothing new. At least since the 40s, we can trace it back. And China was spending, just recently in 2016, $30 million in controlling rainfall. Is that what's happening there? When did you hear 40 inches of rain in Texas ever happen? I mean, they can stall a storm, right? Just let it rain and rain until they flood everybody out. Now you get hurricanes coming in. Harvey unleashed a Category 4 over the weekend, and they're increasing, seem deadlier. What about the radioactive? We don't even talk about some of these things. There's so much going on. The radioactive contamination of the biosphere due to Fukushima, Chernobyl, decades of nuclear weapons testing, depleted uranium, weapons, battlefield use of these depleted uranium weapons, nuclear power plants, nuclear waste dumps, and nuclear storage sites, all contaminating the earth, and we're not even talking about that stuff. There's a rapidly increasing failure of our natural ecosystems as great forests are cut down, seas are polluted and choked with waste of every description. I think there's an island out in the ocean somewhere that's, massive, and it's all garbage. Yeah. It's the garbage island, and I'm not sure, it's in the Pacific somewhere. It's where all the garbage collects. It's formed its own little island. You think we could clean it up with the billions of dollars that we have, but no, we just let it sit there. Decline of basic reasoning in people, analytical and practical life. They're dumbing down of people all over the world. No social skills anymore. Everybody's locked into a computer. You can walk by people, they don't even know you're there. Hordes of people the world over increasingly turn into their personal digital devices for, everything. In lieu of thinking of themselves, interacting with actual live human beings, or engaging in tangible real-world activities. The net result is a less human world and living environment. It's a robot world they're creating, you see, as the human race willingly will embrace artificial, transhumanist, slippery slope down which is now plunging headlong. We're going headlong into it. Robotic life. Who's going to be controlling us? How about the burgeoning use and practice of gene editing, microchipping, genetic modification, transsexual alteration? Pharmaceutical substance use and misuse of every variety, social and behavior engineering and modification, and more. I think you get the idea of where I'm coming from today. We're all it's an insanity, frankly, demonic, grotesque amount of things going on. And it's really, in a sense, isn't it really hard just to be a normal human being? It's getting to the point where normal if you're normal, you're abnormal. And all the abnormals are normal. It's a complete shifting of things. Turning night into day. Turning black into white. And really, it's a multi-front assault against healthy, normal, sane people. By who? By wicked, evil, demonically dark forces. We must see it for what it really is. And that is why I discuss the Vatican a lot, because they are in the forefront of this demonic presence. No bigger demonic space than when you in the Vatican. Wow. And that's why I'm going to talk about that grotesque figure they have above the memorial to all the dead popes. And if they were a holy organization serving God, that would never be there. And let me tell you something. I remember it. And I was so naive at the time. I said, well, God, look at that. Why would they put something like that there? Duh, Greg, you should have realized that years ago what they really were all about. Well, better late than never. It took me a while, but I figured it out. But there were a lot of satanic things going on in the Vatican when I was there that I got a whiff of. And boy, I'll tell you what, if anybody tells me that's a holy apostolic church, you're dead wrong. Now, let's get back to this. And this Richard Sauter wanted me to, whoever sent me this, wanted me to do this. And I said, I think it's a good idea because, these guys put figures out for a reason. Now, they may be working on the other side, but they'll scare the hell out of you. Then they say, well, I'm trying to fight it. We've got to let you know the truth. And then we're going to fight against it and stop it. You ain't going to stop this New World Order train, folks. They've invested way too much money into this, and they've carefully planned it out, and they've got us. If you can't see how Trump is being used, and he knows it, he's being asked, and he agreed to this role he's playing as President of the United States. And you can see it all coming apart at the seams. It's the last vestige of America. That's what they want to see. They're showing it to you. Here's the normal, good American people trying their best to beat the evilness in the world, or the new world. You see, it's the old world. They want, normalcy, they're turning into abnormal. And so their push for globalism that, much of the country is behind, is going to wipe out the last vestige of normal average Americans. And also the good side of America. Now, I've talked to you about Deagle before, I believe, and given his evident ties, though, to the military-industrial and agency complex, the near-future population levels, as presented on his website for all the world countries, are of special interest. Notably, many of the world's countries are predicted to suffer massive, according to these statistics, depopulation by the year 2025. So it's all coming into focus now. It's not too far away, which means that the precipitous population loss could conceivably even start happening later this year or next year or in 2019 for sure. That is what an objective reading of these numbers would suggest. According to this website, Deagle, by 2025, the USA will lose 83% of its population, down from approximately 324 million to just about 54 million. Are you going to be one of the lucky ones? Only massive economic collapse, a nuclear war, catastrophic failure of our national power grid, apocalyptic natural disasters, runaway infectious plagues, and similar events can cause such a massive loss of life in such a brief period of time. We talk about every one of those things. And then we take it a step farther on this show, which we call the alternative to the alternative, because we then trace who are these people. And it all roads lead to Rome, and all these governments are puppets of them. It's like they're pulling the puppet strings, and they're creating the chaos. They got the Hegelian dialectic working, always chaos, one side fighting the other, and the Vatican-led group controls it all. But not only will the U.S., according to these numbers, suffer population losses, many countries in Europe, the Middle East, and East Asia will also face dramatic loss of life in the next years, according to Deagle. Now, France, Israel, Turkey, and the Ukraine, Germany, Spain, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Japan, Portugal, Ireland, Italy, and others will lose many millions of people in the coming years, according to these statistics. These, of course, folks, are not my numbers, but you should pay careful attention to these people who are working on the other side, because they tell you a lot what's going to happen. Now, let's not discount the fact they may put these out there for fear, but I don't see it that way anymore, because there's too much going on now. You can almost feel it in the air. Now, he's got obvious ties to these global forces and agencies in the know. Notice, though, in this list that North Korea is listed in the 2016 roster of countries at number 99, but in 2025, listing North Korea is conspicuously absent. It's entirely gone from the list. There's no more North Korea. North Korea is not the only one that's gone. In 2016, Deagle lists 209 countries. The roster of countries by 2025 is reduced to 183, so, well, countries are gone. Gibraltar's one, San Marino, Bermuda, Jersey, Guernsey, Isle of Man, American Samoa, and some others. One possible interpretation of these country population numbers is that Deagle has caught wind of a major planning of a war in which North Korea will be completely wiped out, as will more than 80% of the USA, a very big chunk of Europe, most of Israel, and some other parts of the Middle East, including serious damage to Western Pacific nations such as Australia and various small banking centers, as well as Anglo-American power centers such as Gibraltar and Bermuda. Deagle in these stats foresees that Russia and China will emerge virtually unscathed from whatever is projected to occur, as will most of Africa and Latin America, with the big exception of Puerto Rico, which will be hammered very hard. Look at these numbers and make them out with what you will. But think of this, that a scenario like that is very likely in what's going on in the world today. What are they really contemplating? That's what we're asking here. And truthfully look at the world headlines soberly and see the direction that the global events are trending. It appears maybe this guy, Deagle, has reached a stark conclusion. The days of global the days of the USA, like I said, the days are numbered of the USA and sovereignty, and its vassal states these days are numbered, and it's all about to come to an abrupt, lethal, mass mortality halt. Now, we shall see if this comes to pass, but one thing is abundantly clear: things cannot go on the way they are much longer as they are. There's got to be a global change. That's what they're shooting for. Now, massive change lies ahead. It's absolutely baked in at this point. It's too late to turn back. Major global events are in the motion, and they will certainly run their course. And you'll be there to see it all play out. Okay, so we got about 6 or 7 minutes here. In the next half hour, on the other side of the break, I want to get to that Vatican story about that grotesque figure looming over the memorial list of the dead popes in the Vatican. And it really tells you who they are. And so anybody that has any doubt about what I say, all you got to do is listen to the next half hour about, and I'll do the best I can because we're talking about a picture. And you know what I'll do? I got a video on this. So I'll put it up on my website tomorrow when the show appears so you can see it for yourself. But anyway, I was there personally and remember it. And I remember saying to myself, what the heck is that thing doing up there if they're a holy organization? So, I mean, their signs and symbols are the best key in what they tell us through their codes of who they really are, and that's where you have to get. They're not going to come out and tell you the truth. They're going to lie, they're going to deceive, and they're going to use demonic forces to get to their goal, and that's a global control of everybody. And the statistics we were given could be very well true. You know, I did a story, I didn't do this story, but I was checking out our nuclear silos, and most of them are, they're in the Midwest and all over the place. And some, citizen sleuths in these small towns in Montana noticed CIA presence and started to monitor them. They were able to use some kind of audio technique so they could listen in without the CIA knowing, which is kind of interesting in itself. And they are now making sure that all of these missile sites work. All of these what do they call them? Minutemen missiles. are in functioning order. So why are they doing that now? And then Australia 60 Minutes did a show on the inside workings of all these things. They didn't do it here. But anyway, it started to talk about how all of these are manned. It's 60s technology, but still in good shape, etc., etc. So something's brewing, folks. Something's brewing. And that's why I read those numbers to you. Not to put fear. We know. I mean, it's right out there in plain sight. I mean, every day you're hearing the thumpings of war. You're seeing these natural disasters, 40 inches of rain in Texas. I mean, there's a lot going on. And then, of course, we have the racist, the orchestration of racism and hatred in this country between the alt-left and the alt-right. And another interesting story is that a forensic examiner, you know who Heather Heyer is. She's the woman that was supposedly killed by a man who was driving, an alt-right man who was driving a Charger and killed her. And she was an alt-leftist protester. Now, this story is interesting, and we know they orchestrate all these events, and they're false flags. So when I heard about that, I said, now this is going to be interesting because something will come up that doesn't wash with her investigation. And this forensic investigator and a policeman who wants to remain anonymous stated that her body was inconsistent. The remains of her body was inconsistent with the trauma that she would have had if she was hit by a car. So they're claiming that it was impossible that she was killed by the car and that she might have been on top of it when someone else killed her. Now, that's not unusual that they could plan her death. They could fake her death. But all they wanted to do was to show how terrible these right-wing protesters are, and they even killed a left-winger. And so the tension is the tension is there. They're creating this left against right, black against white, racism against the Mexicans against white Americans, so you name it. They're trying every bit to disrupt things in the United States. Now, during that rally in Charlottesville on, August 12th and 13th, 2017, violence broke out. Okay, violence broke out there, and let me go to it. That was intended to be a peaceful rally, and which had been held. The right wing held the conservative rally, had a permit, the culprit of the violence. They say, despite what the mainstream media has parroted, violence at the rally ensued when counter-protesters appeared to speak against the conservative rally's cause, wielding bats and homemade flamethrowers. So we have the left paid, probably George Soros boys paid to go in there and create violence. But yet the mainstream media is blaming the alt-right. It's their Hegelian dialectic at perfect work. Perhaps the most unfortunate damage brought on by the radical left counter-protesters was the death of Heather Heyer, supposedly, which occurred at the leftists began to demolish a car. So the leftists are demolishing the car of the infamous James Field, who then panicked and ran over Heyer in a frenzy, they say. However, according to forensic experts that I just said, who wants to remain anonymous, she was not murdered by the collision with Field's car. And this story, folks, will go on and on. According to this expert, the position of Hayer's body on the front of the car was inconsistent with the course of the car striking her. This, of course, puts a large boulder in the path of Field's accusers, who wish him to be executed for domestic terrorism. So, let's follow that story along. And we know, and we've made blanket statements, that all of these terrorist attacks are false flags, orchestrated by FBI, CIA. Remember the story we did last week about how they recruited a schizophrenic man and got him to put in, to drive a car that supposedly was filled with blasting equipment, and, we saw that. I mean, that was a factual piece that, leaves no doubt that they're doing that. Hey, I got to take a break. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. you will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This ain't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour on this Monday, August 28th, 2017 day. On our calendar, the Gregorian calendar, named after yours truly. Nope, I don't want to be associated with it. But anyway, what in the hell, I said at the beginning of the show, is this beneath the Vatican memorial of dead popes? It's a grotesque figure. I'm going to get to it in a minute. But it really tells you who they are. And I remember when I was there in Rome, I've been through that Vatican hundreds of times. And their signs, symbols, and all of their satanic messages that are plastered on the Vatican walls are there for you to see, if you have eyes to see. And for a while, I didn't have eyes to see. I didn't see any of that because I was caught up in their propaganda. I grew up as a Catholic kid. From the beginning, I remember my education. From the time I was a kindergarten kid at St. Mary's in Chicago until high school, that's all I knew. I went to St. John Brebeuf grade school and then Notre Dame High School. So I was indoctrinated big time. I should have known to get out of Catholicism when I remember the first day that I was to go to kindergarten. They had to drag me tooth and nail. My uncle said that they had to almost hogtie me to get me to go. I didn't want to leave home. And so I finally went up into there was a big huge steel staircase going up to the upstairs kindergarten room, and I remember they gave you a nap on the first day, and I was so upset that I snuck out, ran out of that door, and was going to run home, and a nun was coming up the stairs. I frightened her. She fell down and broke her arm. Oh boy, that was the beginning of my Catholic schooling. I should have known to get out at that point. But I did have instincts even then. I wanted to run the hell out of there. And I ended up going back, of course, and the rest of it's history, right? But anyway, let's start out with one of the main symbols that we see all the time, but nobody, people without eyes to see don't pay any attention to it. It's the obelisk sitting in, Vatican Square, right there for you to see. And it's got the pentagram on the ground, all around it with all its symbols, and really it's a phallic symbol to the Greek god Isis. And we know about that. Now there's another one in Washington, D.C., which is our Freedom Monument, and there's another one in London, in the city of London, which is not a part of London or England, just like Washington, D.C. is not a part of the United States, and just like Vatican City is not a part of Italy. But they all have something in common. They have their own flag. Yes, these three great powers of evil have their own flag. They have their own laws, and they have their own satanic messaging that goes back and forth. So anyway, this is the first one, the big obelisk. Everybody should realize that it's not a freedom monument. It's not a holy gift given by the Egyptians to the Vatican. It's there to tell you who they really are, and the same thing in London. So we have London, the financial hub, the United States, the military hub, and the Vatican, the spiritual satanic hub. All controlled from Rome. That's why all these presidents start running to Rome. They go bow down to the Pope all the time. That's why our Congress let him speak before a joint group of Congress. Then he goes to the UN. And what was interesting about that was that it wasn't just the representatives of the UN that were there. It was all the big leaders getting their marching orders from the boss. And we know they created the UN so that they could put all their power, their global situation will be in the control of a global group of people controlling this world from 10 strategic locations, they say. They like to use the number 10 for that. It's nice and simple. Okay, we'll see, until those figures are correct from the first half of my show. Then we got a lot to digest here, but if you want to get the idea of what I'm talking about, let me just put it in plain English. The Vatican and the Jesuit order have been at this game of control and deceit for hundreds of years. The Jesuits ever since their formation in the 1500s. So they're experts at infiltration. They're experts at deception. They're experts in bringing back the occult, the satanic worshiping of, sacrificing of children. They still do it in the deep, dark corners of the Vatican. And this demonic presence is what they're experts at. And they're into everything. So basically, these political people, they're not smart enough to come up with these things. They have to have a script. And the Vatican and the Jesuits write their script. And of course, they know how to play the game, the Hegelian dialectic. So they have Putin fighting, this guy, the Chinese leader fighting us. We got Kim Jong. They always pick a dictator, like a tin horn dictator to create they need a powder keg element here to blow up the world in World War III. And so They've chosen the Korean leader to do that. And guess where he's getting? How do they get all? If we're such a great power, and China doesn't want to see an escalation of war, then how does he get his hands on all this nuclear weapons unless we and China give it to him so they can, have their big war that they say they don't want? And so if you dig down deep enough, that's what you'll find. And so, anyway, it all comes back, though. There's more to this than just world control. They want a demonic system. This is a satanic system of evil. I mean, they love blood, guts, and all this perversion that's going on. What do you think they want to pervert? They want to pervert society. They don't want to make it better. Oh, they say they do. They're going to protect you. We want goodness for all people. That's all talk and sugarcoating. Always think this. When they say something, think the opposite. And then you're better, you're probably going to be correct. But when I was there in Rome, I saw a lot of satanic objects. And I remember after I was aware that there may be satanic sacrificing of children in the catacombs of the Vatican, since I used to walk around there, I said, well, maybe I could go find where they do it. Yeah, that'd be smart, Greg. You'll have your head cut off. But anyway, I would try to sneak around the Vatican, the places you weren't supposed to go. But it's very, very hard. They catch you. And they got all these, they got the Swiss Guard. This place is on lockdown. Put it this way. You got a certain area you go, and that's it. And most of it is hidden. So I remember talking to a priest once. I said, hey, if you guys are open, I'm a former Catholic. Well, I'm a Catholic. I grew up a Catholic. How come I can't see everything in the Vatican? And he'd say, son, this is not the way the world operates. There are many places that are off limits to the people for good reason. We need security. There's things going on that are quite important that not the common person should have no idea. I said, well, what about this Vatican library? You guys got all the books of the world. Why don't you let us read them? Son, he would say, you can't, I'll just paraphrase the old Tom Cruise, the movie with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise. You can't handle the truth. And so the Vatican remains cloaked in mystery. But I'll tell you what, there's enough out there, enough in plain view to walk away with the one interpretation. They are a satanic organization. And anybody that says this, and this is what you're hearing from a lot of these alternative COINTEL broadcasters like Alex Jones, a.k.a. Bill Hicks, and others, they say, now, it's in tune with the old Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, all that propaganda, that the dark side of the Vatican is now being ushered in, especially through Pope Francis. The evil men are trying to take over the good Vatican and destroy it from within. Now, and they even remember in the Angels and Demons movie, they were saying the Vatican's fighting the Illuminati. And I said the Vatican is the Illuminati. There is no good side to the top levels of this group. There isn't. This church has been corrupt from the beginning, right from the very get-go. And it's worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, and that's what they want. To the day comes when, yes, America, they're going to take this country and rip it apart because they believe it's theirs. Because they were instrumental in forming the Constitution. They were instrumental in fomenting the Revolutionary War. And I've brought statistics and facts that need to be looked at. But you can't get this on the table. We might as well call the Jesuits, and Father Lorenzo Ricci in particular, one of the Jesuit generals, the Founding Fathers. They are the Founding Fathers, and Hamilton or Jefferson and all these other, they were just puppets in their hand. Now, look, you can't be positive what they know. I mean, there's so many things that go on, but you can say this, that they were working together with Rome to create the Constitution so they could get Rome into this country because they were persona non grata back then. Nobody wanted them here because they knew what they did in Europe at the time. So the first people that came over said, hey, we don't want the Jesuits here. We don't want. They couldn't even vote. They had one little measly diocese here. And from that, they've grown to be the biggest power. And the way they could do that is by having a clause in the Constitution which allows freedom of religion, a new concept, the free world. But they did it to infiltrate us. And once they got control, it's a takeover. And then you don't have freedom of religion anymore. That was their goal from the beginning. But anyway, let's get to this grotesque picture. So I said there's a memorial plaque. It's featured in Vatican City, okay, that commemorates the popes buried in St. Peter's with their names in Latin. And in the year of their burial engraved alongside of each pope. Now remember that. Now, the mantle underneath this memorial, there's a mantle underneath it. It's amazing. It's the most disturbing and grotesque thing you'll ever witness in your life if you really take a look at it. And I remember looking at it. So I'm going to try to describe it. And then tomorrow maybe I'll put a video up, or today, that was sent to me. Now, first of all, this grotesque figure has horns on his head. He's got a huge slave collar on. Now, does that look like, just from what I told you, would that be something that you'd want when you're entering into paradise for your good popes? Why would you put a grotesque figure? In fact, it's something quite opposite than that. So what exactly is going on in this church? Why is this under a memorial list of popes? Now, I think the answer is pretty obvious when you really look at it, but let's delve into it a bit. There's a complete reality and spiritual significance of what is really going on here. And, I saw it years ago in the 80s and was too blind to understand because I was young at the time and learning about the Vatican. But this, the man pictured in this bronze gold plaque, huge mantle, he's in absolute agony. He's got this monstrous slave collar around his neck. And these are they're serpents that are coming down, and they actually make horns around him. Now, could this be the locusts of Revelation 9? And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of the great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them, and they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given them, they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion, and when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Now, in this picture, or in this memorial, the shapes of locusts were, you can almost see, you can see, I got to look real closely here, but there are wings going out. What was the slave collar are the wings going out, okay? And then there's a half hair. Now he has hair like a woman in this, and here's the hair. That's the movement of the wind under the wings that are moving. Now he's got claws like a scorpion, and he's wearing a crown, and it's coming out from the ground. And in that revelation it says, and they had hair as a woman, and their teeth were as teeth of lions, and they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, And the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots, of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. Now, you can see in this grotesque mantle underneath the popes, the dead popes, you can see the face of the locust from the pit. And you can see it right in the right eye. And you can also see he's wearing a crown. The crown is made by the teeth of a human when you turn it upside down. This is the other eye right here. There's two eyes, of course. This is the nose. Look at it. It's grotesque. And so we're looking at it, relating it to, Revelation. And what they're doing is they're creating that this is the beast. And they had the king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. So that's what it is. They're telling you exactly who they are. And every human being that dies without being born again of the incorruptible Holy Spirit has their spiritual energy transmuted into a locust creature. It's just a thought, which is gestating underneath the earth, awaiting the birth out of the bottomless pit. The unconverted souls of humanity are used as fuel to breed an alien race of underworld locust creatures run by Apollyon, the king of the bottomless pit. Now, this mantle, this representation under the popes, is quite interesting and really tells you who they are. So in short, folks, to make this short and sweet, they put a representation of Apollyon, a grotesque figure there, showing who they are, and that all the popes are in the bottomless pit of hell, and they want to take you along with them. Is the exact interpretation that I gather out of that. I'm sure there's others that'll add more to it. But it reminds me of also, it makes me think of CERN. They're trying to supposedly crash through the firmament, and maybe they're trying to get to this bottomless pit. Who knows? But look up CERN and do some research on that. Okay, we have about 5 minutes. Let's end the show not on a satanic note. But I want to go to, this is kind of satanic as well, I guess. But anyway, I started a writing contest on my website. And what I do is I re-put it at the top of the blogs just to see if I can get some interest. But I'm very disappointed. I wanted people, I think it was an interesting time, this iPetGo 2 related to, George Bush and the first 9/11 comes back on the scene. It came out in 2012, but folks, they plan things way in advance. There's a lot of things you see in The Simpsons and Back to the Future. They were done 20, 30. Simpsons have been on 20 years giving you signals, of what they're going to do. So I thought it was very pertinent that it had a scene in there regarding the eclipse. And so the set off on August 21, maybe a 30 to 40 day cycle, which will begin what I was talking about in the first hour of this depopulation program. And I thought it's about an 8-minute video. And I said, come on, folks, interpret it for me. Let's see if we can get a whole bunch of people. And I said, it's a $25 entry fee. I have not got one person to join or to want to do it. And I'm disappointed. So I'm going to give it a little more time and then maybe just forget about it. But maybe people don't want to pay the $25. Or maybe they don't want to do it. I don't know. I thought it would be interesting. And people said, well, why'd you charge $25? I said, well, who the hell's going to read these? I got to read them. I got to do all that. I'm going to, plus I need to raise some money for my show. And that brings me to the point. I'm still running a pledge drive, and I want to keep the show on the air. It's listener sponsored. So go to my website at GregAnthony'sJournal, GregAnthony'sJournal.wordpress.com, and you can press the donate button. Any bit comes in handy. So anyway, help me out on that regard. So come on, people. iPet Go 2. It's an interest. See how many of these things you can pick out and what they're telling us. They're giving you kind of a format of what they have planned for us in the future. And I thought it would be very interesting. Remember, 9/11. Where was George W. Bush when the towers were struck down or demolished, detonated? He was reading Pet Goat, My Pet Goat, to a class in some grammar school class. So that's where he was. Now, there's a relationship to iPet Go 2 and that, and I think something else big is going to happen. Could it happen on 9/11 again? Please not. It's my birthday. Don't ruin another one. But you never know what these people have in store for us. And I hope during the first half hour and then bringing this real depiction of Satan and the world they have. I mean, these are the top popes of the world. And if you think they're good, why would they put that grotesque representation of the bottomless pit right there under their names? And I always like to say, if you want to have a nice holiday, go to Palermo, and there's a place where the Capuchin monks still have. It's the House of Bones. They collect bones. And they got bones of all of their former brothers hanging, skulls. It's the most incredible thing you'll ever see in your life. You'll think you walk in there and you go, I asked the old guy, it was an old priest there, why do you collect these? And he looked at me and he says, son, we want to remember the dead. I don't know. He spoke in Sicilian, so I couldn't quite understand everything because it's a different language than Italian. There's some similarities. But if you want to have a nice Satanic holiday in Palermo, Sicily, go to the House of the Capuchin monks, one of the oldest orders of the Satanic Catholic Church. But anyway, we're all out of time. I did want to say this. Go to my website at GregAnthony'sJournal.wordpress.com. You get a lot of stories going back well over a decade, shows regarding the Vatican and others, and a progression of, you'll see how during the years we learn more and more and more and put together the whole puzzle. That's the whole idea, is to put it all together. We have a long way to go, so we're going to put another piece to that puzzle on tomorrow. So come back to the Investigative Journal. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.